Welcome to A Rare Reality, a podcast powered by Jordan's Guardian Angels. I'm Christina Janes, Director of Outreach and Content Development for JGA, and I have been so excited for this podcast for months now. We tried to do it earlier in the year. Everybody was busy, so it's finally happening. Rise Pediatric Intensive Therapy is here with us today. Aliza Sakin and Nicole Reedy both are here. And you guys, thank you for taking some time. I know your schedule is wild, so thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here.
Very excited. So happy we can make it happen.
Oh, it's terrific. I initially heard about you guys from our favorite, Michelle Frushine, who said,
Yes,
Christina, we're doing big things over here. Let's talk about how this is going. And you guys have done incredible work with Haley, and they have seen some amazing strides in that sweet girl. I can't say enough about the amazing work that you're doing. So we wanted to have you on, talk about what you do, and shine a light on you guys. So tell us about who you are and where you are in the world, because we have families all over the world. Tell us about you.
Sure. So I'm Aliza. This is Nicole. We are in Westfield, New Jersey. That's where our clinic is. We both grew up in New Jersey.
Yeah.
I'm the physical therapist of the team. Nicole is the OT of the team, the occupational therapist.
Yeah, people don't know what that is.
And I graduated PT school in 2014, and right off the bat, I started working with kids, and I worked in early intervention for since 2015 until I discovered DMI, and then I got Nicole on the DMI bandwagon.
Yeah. So I went to Ithaca. I graduated with my master's in OT in 2015. And then same thing, I kind of went right into peds. I always knew I wanted to work with little ones, specifically the 0 to 3 population. So I worked in a few different places, and then I worked in early intervention starting in 2019, and that's how we met. We shared a client, and I was like, oh, this PT is really good. And then we would chat about our shared clients, refer each other, like, oh, this kid needs PT, I know a great one, get Aliza on the case. And then we had a shared client, we'll call him Jay, and he went to Napa. Do you want to explain Napa?
Sure. Napa is one of the first intensive therapy programs in the US. They now have, 10, 15 locations worldwide. And that's where a child can get intensive therapy. So he was there for 3 weeks. He had DMI, he had PT, he had OT, he had speech there. And when he came home, the gains he made were just astronomical. And I was like, oh my God, I have to do this. Like,
this is my calling.
This is what I want. I want to see this. Yeah, it was like a light bulb. I was like, this is it. I'm honed in.
Yeah.
And then I found the DMI website, and their trainings were so accessible. There were so many. They were right around the corner. They were in New York, and I was like, this is it. I'm doing it. And so I took my first course. I don't even know when I took it. I think it was 2021.
Yeah.
And then from then on, I was like, Nicole, you have to do this. We just over the 3 years that we knew each other, we kept referring more and more kids to each other, to a point where like a manager was like, you guys have to stop doing this. Like, you can't just have all of the same. But that is where like our DMI journey kind of started.
So explain DMI to everybody in case they don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. So DMI stands for Dynamic Movement Intervention. It's a relatively new therapeutic technique based off something called CME. And this was created by Jake Krenler and Joanne Weltman. They're both seasoned physical therapists. Phenomenal practitioners. But basically what it is it's a therapy modality or technique that can be used by both OTs and PTs. And the aim of DMI is to make neuroplastic change or change in the brain by specific exercises and handling techniques provided by the therapist. And when we do this, we aim to make neuronal pathways or different changes in the brain, so that way they can achieve different gross motor skills and just support their functioning. So there's more research coming out about it because it's a fairly newer technique.
Yeah.
There's not like a ton of evidence, not because it's not effective and doesn't work. It's just because it's newer, but it's one of the main modalities used at the Napa Center. So that's how we kind of found out about it.
Yeah.
The The analogy I like to give, because the explanation is a little bit long-winded. So the way we explain it to our parents is, think about walking across a tightrope that's like 500 feet in the air, right? Like, you can't use your hands. So you're hyper aware of where your body is in space. You're hyper aware of where your head is in relation to your hands and your feet. And you would kick in muscles you didn't even know you had. So whatever we're working on in DMI, that's the feeling we're trying to invoke in our kids. Because they are the active participant in the exercise. It's not passive. It's not us doing the work. It's them doing the work. And we do each exercise 5 times. And that repetition, hopefully you're doing the exercise in an intensive, so it's even more intense repetition. And the reason we do that repetition is to get neuroplastic change in their brain. So do you want to give a little road analogy?
Yeah, sure. So another way we sometimes describe it to parents is when we say neuroplastic change or make those neural pathways in the brain, it's kind of like if you went on a hike, if you were to go, on a mountain trail that was visited all the time by people, that trail would be walked on, thousands of times. It'd be very clear, smooth. And that's kind of what we're trying to do, is we want to walk over that trail or make that neural pathway smoother, quicker, so they can get that motor pattern or that new movement, that new skill more quickly, more efficiently. So like Eliza said, we're never passively moving a child through a movement or an exercise. They are an active participant. And by providing that sensory cue, we can trigger that neuroplasticity in the brain and change in the brain.
Yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's amazing to me that you can, by like simple movements though, and with that repetition, that then you can actually change how someone does something on a regular basis, especially in kids. I mean, we know that their brains are constantly changing and incredibly, able to do that, but that's incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another way you can kind of think about it too, sometimes that makes sense to me. It's like, if you're a big social media user and you know where your Instagram app is on your phone, like, do you have to look at it anymore? No, like, you've created that motor plan, like, oh, I swipe to the left and I know it's on the right side of this social media folder. So
Yeah.
Good way to look
yeah,
at
so
it.
like the more you
Scary.
repeat a motor,
It's so true though.
the
It
more
is
you repeat
true.
a motor plan or a motor action, the quicker it becomes, and it becomes like almost involuntary. Because
Yeah.
if we think about when we're walking, when we're sitting, we're not thinking like, okay, I have to contract this, core muscle or make sure my shoulders are back. Like, you just do it. And that's what we're trying to provoke in a child. And one thing we didn't touch on was the intensive model of therapy.
Yeah.
So it's being seen anywhere from 2 to 4 hours a day. Napa typically does 4 hours. We do anywhere from 2 to 3, and we do it 5 days a week for 2 to 3 weeks. So it's anywhere from 20 to 30 hours of therapy in 2 to 3 weeks.
So do you
And the
do
reason
this?
we do this is
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Do you do
The
this?
reason we do this condensed version of therapy is because the research shows that if these intensive models where you have 3 weeks of therapy and 30 sessions in 3 weeks, you can get the same amount of progress that you would see in like 6 to 8 months of traditional weekly therapy.
That's
So
amazing.
it's like therapy on steroids.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
often do you do this? So if they complete their 3 weeks, then is there a break?
Yeah, so everyone recommends that you wait 6 weeks in between your intensives. The
Yeah.
reason for that is just it's really fatiguing and we need to give kids rest.
Yeah.
But it just gives the brain time to process all of the information too. So like some of our kids too, I mean, we can go on and on about intensives and how cool they are, but the post-intensive gains are the coolest part. Like sometimes our kids make progress with us, and we do. They always make progress, and we always
like
see it.
Haley
Yeah.
was not very unique, but like she achieved 3 big milestones in her first intensive,
And
which
that's
is
unheard
like
of.
amazing. A lot of kids, it takes maybe they'll do 1 or like an inch stone, and then maybe a few, like 2 to sometimes 10 weeks after that, that's when we'll start seeing it.
Right. So like those post-intensive gains, like sometimes it's physical. Like Haley the only reason we can talk about Haley is because she set us up. So I just
Yeah.
want to say
Yes.
that.
Not breaking
Yes.
HIPAA.
We would not break HIPAA otherwise. But Haley, all of a sudden last week, we hadn't seen her in a month. Her intensive ended in August. She's now able to stand with her hands held. Like, that magic to us is like unbelievable.
I
That
mean, you helped
you see
to
those gains, you
create
see
that.
the brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we don't, it's Haley, you know what I mean? Like, it's her and her
Right.
body and her brain. Like, we helped support it, but that was all her.
Yeah.
I
And
mean-
another cool thing about intensives too is sometimes we'll see global implications,
Yeah,
meaning like
so cool.
we're not necessarily, let's say we're just doing a straight DMI intensive where we're mostly working on gross motor skills. We still might see fine motor gains. So they're using their hands better. We can see communication gains. We can see social interactions. So like, you know, we love updates from parents. So a parent texted us that her little boy, like a couple months after he ended his intensive, he started playing peekaboo and took like a washcloth off his
It's like
face.
because he had better body awareness and he understood where his hand
We didn't work
was.
on that, but
No, right. Or another one, he was able to use a paintbrush, right, where he couldn't do that before. So
another kid said mama for the first time.
So it's like, it blows our mind. Those are our favorite because we didn't work on that.
Yeah.
So sometimes it feels like magic to us too.
It is magic. And it's amazing what happens when you can open those pathways in the brain, what happens, because all of a sudden then everybody is like, whoa, now wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, it's so special. And, you know, one thing we didn't say right off the bat was, you know, of course, every child is different, right? Every child is different. Everybody's journey is different. This may not work for your child, but it may work for others. And that was why, you know, we always try to bring things to our community that are new and different and something you maybe don't know about. So research is key, you know, just so that our families know that in all of this. But how different is this? Because, you know, you hear about traditional PT, you hear about traditional OT. We've had that here in our house with my son. How much different is this than like the traditional, if you will, you know, ways of doing things?
I would say some of the exercises look very similar to traditional therapy, and, you know, straight DMI exercises, we're working towards the same things as you would in traditional therapy. We're still trying to get them to roll and sit and stand. Our hands and what we ask of them is different and more demanding on the child, I would say. Like, we help them less, but we still put the expectation onto the child, even though we're helping them less, is what I would say. But most intensives, even if it's a DMI intensive, we are always going to bring our own backgrounds into each intensive. So like, there's always going to be some traditional OT, some sensory regulation, some PT stuff.
And we always say, like, yes, we use DMI, but at the end of the day, we are therapists. Like, we are DMI therapists, but we're still like, I'm an occupational therapist, you're a physical therapist. So like, DMI is one of our main modalities that we use, and it is quite specialized, and we see the amazing, you know, results that it brings, but we also have other specialties and experience, background that we bring to the table. So, you know, if a child comes in and they're like, okay, like, yes, I want to work on sitting and crawling, but he's really struggling to use his hands or reach or do things like that, then we will use, you know, maybe more traditional occupational therapy approaches. We're also certified in something called TASES, which is task-specific electrical stimulation. So we do some neuromuscular reeducation with like eStim. So there's all these different things that we bring in, and we're not the only intensive program who does that. I would say most use a lot of different modalities. DMI is just one of the ones that's really like exploding right now.
I think that's one of the first things though about DMI that I love so much. When I first took the first course, I took it with Jake Krendler, the founder, and DMI doesn't say, well, we're the best of the best, and this is the only modality you can ever use and nothing else will work. They encourage you to use it as a tool and to do it in conjunction with so many other different types of therapy, because it's all about helping the child, and every child is different. Going back to your point of, well, DMI isn't for everyone. You usually see it on younger children. That's solely because there is a weight limit for DMI. Every practitioner has different bodies and different strengths. So it depends on who the practitioner is, right? So like, our weight limit for a child is like 40-ish pounds, depending on their functional level, whereas someone else could be 45, 50, where someone else could be 25, 30. So
Yeah.
there's no age limit on DMI, but there is a weight limit.
Size, weight.
Yeah. And like back to the neuroplasticity, you want to get them in as early as possible, because that's how when their brains are the most moldable. So it's still effective for an 8, 9, 10-year-old, but if you do it when you're 2 or 3, your results are going to be more effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
So for instance, this is obviously intense. There's a lot that goes into it. You're asking a lot of the child, but you're also asking a lot of the parent to be able to let go and let you do what you're doing. So let's touch on the mental load. What does that feel like for parents?
It's a huge mental load. We often say intensives are just as hard on the parents, if not more. You're asking, we're asking you to bring in your child. Oftentimes your child is disabled, has a new disability, maybe isn't even diagnosed, and we're doing all of these things. Sometimes they'll cry. So it's a huge ask for parents, and they really have to trust us. And we really, I think, pride ourselves on building that therapeutic relationship and trust with them, and making sure that they're okay during the intensive. Like, we always say we absolutely give the child breaks, but if they need more breaks, if you need to step out because it's too much or whatever it is, that's totally fine. I'm personally not a parent. Eliza is, so she might be able to touch on this a little more.
What I didn't say before is my first intensive I ever did was with my son, and it was during COVID, and he was delayed, and I really, really did not want to be his therapist, but he needed it. So I did an intensive with him. I did an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon for like over a month. And I don't know who cried more, him or me. It was really hard. I mean, again, it was my own kid, but it was like, I knew it was good for him, but it was so hard mentally for both of us to go through that. And so I think like we're very sensitive on these parents are coming in, they're paying all this money to see their kids scream and cry because it's hard, not because it hurts, but it's hard. And we want to make sure they're okay too, right? They have to feel taken care of, and like they're going through so much. We want this to be something that's supportive for them, and that they know is helping, and not like preachy or not fun and torture. We don't want parents to dread coming here. So if we also caution every parent, like if you're going through something and this is not, you don't feel like you can mentally handle it, now is not the time. And like that's the right thing to do for your child, because it's the right thing for you. Like just if you're struggling, just don't do an intensive. That's okay.
We can put it off, because it's a lot. It's a big commitment. It's a big time commitment. It's a big financial commitment. And one thing that we talk to parents about too is like sometimes it can be extremely overwhelming because you have multiple professions or professionals coming in. So you have speech, OT, PT, maybe somebody else being like, okay, do this at home, and you're working at this. And it's like, oh my gosh,
the list is long.
I don't have enough hours in the day. What am I going to do? So
it's speaking my language. I get it.
It's kind of like at this. So we say sometimes like at this point in time, if you only have the capacity to really focus on speech right now,
just
do it. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no wrong way to go about supporting your child, because at the end of the day, it's your child, you know them best. And we want to make sure parents just like feel supported and like they're not doing the wrong thing, because there's no right way to
we get that question all the time. Okay, when should we do the next intensive? And it's like, if you're happy with your child's gross motor where they are physically, then you don't need to do one. Like I think sometimes parents who are in this intensive world are like, okay, I have to do this intensive, I have another one, I have another one. It's like, if you're okay with how they are, that's fine. Like, yes, this is really effective, but I don't know, we just always, maybe it's like bad business on our part, but we just really want to make sure that the parents are okay.
No, it's honest though. And I think that that's so important, because, you can, yes, of course you could say, yes, you have to keep going, just keep going. But at the end of the day, it's okay to do what you feel is right.
Right. Like the more intensives you can do, the younger they are, that's the more effective it will be, and you'll get that progress. But like, we also don't want to parents to feel so pressured to do that if they can't handle it.
Exactly. And like, every parent, every child's different. Some really prioritize independent mobility in terms of walking, and others are like, no, they're fine using a mobility aid or a wheelchair, and like that's absolutely fine.
Yes.
Like again, there's no wrong way to do this, and we just want to meet a child where they're at. And I think another thing we pride ourselves on is just like appreciating the child. I'm like gonna start crying.
I know,
For who
right?
they are. Because these kids, like, again, we go back to Haley, like every child we see, or Haley, she's so much more than Jordan syndrome. That's
Yeah.
nothing compared to who
Right?
she is.
Exactly.
And these kids they're just kids. They're just like every other
Yeah.
kid. And like, I don't know, to get to know them in such a intimate way, and learn their strengths and what makes them laugh and what they don't like, and they're all so individual and so amazing. It's just like
That's the best part, I think, is that you have each individual child there in front of you who, some of them are, I mean, Haley, for instance, I've had the pleasure of hanging out with, and you just want to bottle her up and put her in your pocket and take her everywhere. I mean, she's so
Literally.
magic,
I know.
She is.
She's sassy and magic.
and
Like,
determined. That one is determined,
God.
so
don't
I
mess
mean,
with her.
yeah, I think it's so incredible to see that. And I think, it's already answered itself, but I did want to see, what is it about this work that makes it so important for you guys?
Mhm. From a personal perspective, I would say I struggled at the end of working in early intervention because I felt like I wasn't helping enough, and it was just slow going. So mentally that was really hard. And I was like, well, what am I doing? It's not helping. Like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And then when I do an intensive, I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually helping. I'm making a change.
working.
So for
Yeah.
me personally, like my mental health feels so much better when I actually can do an intensive and see the change so quickly.
Yeah.
But obviously, like, our number one is the kids. They're amazing.
Yeah, it's like some days I wake up, I'm like, how is this my job? Like, I just get to play and snuggle and help these kids all day. Like, it's really blows my mind sometimes. But yeah, I would say personally, I think the biggest difference, I guess, from traditional therapy to intensives is just the relationships that we got to build when you're spending that much time in such a short period of time with anybody. You're going to develop this really unique relationship. And not that we can't do that with weekly sessions or traditional therapy, but there's just something really special about it being kind of like almost like in the trenches together. Not that it's like the trenches, but you know what I mean? Like it's a hard, unique experience. And some of the relationships we've developed are like so special and amazing, and it's really just like soul filling. So I think personally, like I'm excited to go to work like every day. Some days I'm tired, but we all are. But like mentally, I'm just always happy and excited.
It's special. It's really special. But, I started this by saying, like, we have a community around the world, right? We have families well, it changes every week, but 36 countries right now. How does someone find someone like you guys? If they're not there in New Jersey or in the surrounding area, how do we find someone like you to have you come in and help?
So there are, if you're looking for a specific DMI therapist, if you go on the DMI website, dmitherapy.com, they have a list of practitioners, and it's listed by country and by state. So if you're looking for an intensive, they always recommend looking for a introductory level C certified or trained DMI therapist that is also on the website.
Okay.
There aren't enough of us, but they keep training more and more, and people do travel for intensive. So, you can certainly contact anyone on the DMI website and find the closest one to you and travel. There's like lots of Ronald McDonald houses, and
there's one like probably like 30-40 minutes from us. And DMI is popping up like not every single country, but a lot of countries.
Egypt, Australia,
Poland,
London,
India,
Brazil.
and then Napa Center is also located in Australia, in London. I think that's it right now. So that's a great option. You can try to do virtual. It's not exactly the same, but
there are also clinics that just do traditional intensive therapy, traditional PT/OT in an intensive format, and that's great too.
Yeah,
like that's effective too. So that would be
and
certainly come to New Jersey, and beautiful New Jersey, and come see us.
Right.
there are lots and lots of wonderful practitioners
Yeah, all over.
all over worldwide.
Oh, you guys, I'm going to link all of those, the websites there in the notes for this podcast so our families can access that. But you guys are special. You're really
Oh,
special. And
thank
you
you.
can feel the connection and how much you enjoy what you're doing and your connection to these kids, that it means something. And thank you, because I feel like we're shedding new light on something that our families can really use.
Yeah,
And you've seen it actually work. I mean, we've seen it with one of our own.
yeah.
Been working. So thank you. I know that your schedule is wild. So thank you so much for spending this time with me and sharing. It really means a lot. And I
Oh,
hope that
you're
we get
welcome.
to
Thank you for
work
having me.
together, you know?
We're happy to do it. We're happy to spread the word on intensive therapy and DMI and getting the word out there for as many kids as we can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Thank you for having us.
we'll give you also our information for like our email, our Instagram. So sometimes if parents have never seen DMI before, it can be really helpful to just watch videos because it is so different. So
Yeah.
sometimes you're like, I don't know all these words that you're saying, but if you see it, you're like, oh, this is what they're doing. So yeah, feel free to Instagram, DM us,
Yeah.
email us if you have any specific questions. Even if we don't necessarily see your child, we'd love to just help you get the resources you need.
Yes,
So
Oh,
yeah.
that's awesome. Thank you guys so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having
Thank
us.
Oh,
you.
Appreciate it.
thrilled to have you. I hope we can do this again soon. We like to do different topics. So
Totally.
fun to do more.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime.
All right. And for those of you out there listening today, you can always find us on our website, jordansguardianangels.org. Our YouTube is also packed full of all kinds of different podcasts. So translation services are available there. Take a listen, and also on any podcast platform that you choose to listen to. So thanks for spending some time with us today, and we'll see you guys very soon.